All right, next up, another session for us here. Hywel Carver, the founder and CEO of Hywel. The session is called Unautomatable You. I had to look at that. Unautomatable You. Even if you've seen him speak before, he says this one has a new framework. The central question, where do you actually draw the line between what can be automated and what should be automated? Hywel, please join us on the stage. Thank you so much.
All right. Do I have a clicker I could use? Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much. Impossible to pronounce and pretentious, unautomatable you. Yeah, it's not easy for sure. My name's Hywel. My background is in technology, in often founding companies as the founding CTO, sometimes being a leader brought in later, sometimes advising other tech leaders, and that's been most of my career. I feel like I need to start with a disclaimer that this is not going to be obvious, but I really love AI and machine learning. I find them super exciting. As a developer, I think you learn to fall in love with writing code and making behaviors happen. What's really exciting for me about AI and ML is you kind of design the sort of shell of the system, the outline of it, and then it works out the behavior for itself. It's like the next level. ML to me kind of amplifies the fun of writing code. But as AI has become more prominent in my own work, it's made me question where I should use it and where I shouldn't. I think it's really important that some of our work remains human first. There are places where we can't be replaced by digital versions of ourselves. Laziness can be a virtue, right? But it is often a very good thing to be lazy, to avoid unnecessary work and unnecessary stress and focus on the things that matter. And automation lets us be lazy. It encourages us to be lazy. This is a real road sign. The top of it is in English. It says, no entry for heavy goods vehicles, residential site only. The bottom of it is in Welsh, and it says, I am not in the office at the moment. Please send any work to be translated. Automation is great. Systems are great. But when they tempt us into not thinking, we make silly mistakes that we probably shouldn't make that sometimes get persisted in road signs. I want to convince you that there are parts of our work that really shouldn't be automated. I think those parts are likely to become more important in our roles over the next few years. And I want to talk about how we improve those skills now. But first, has anyone here read this book? Can I get a show of hands? This is Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. A decent number. I reckon that was like 1 in 4 people. So even if you haven't read the book, you might still have watched this film that was based on it. Blade Runner was released in 1982. It's a Ridley Scott film. Here is the approximate idea of Blade Runner. The world now has advanced AI, super advanced AI. That has resulted in centralized power in the hands of a few kind of global megacorps. I should say at the time the film was made, that was considered not inevitable and not desirable. We've also had a nuclear war, which again, at the time of the film, was considered not inevitable and not desirable. Humanity has survived. Unfortunately, most animal life hasn't. And a kind of side plot on the film is how much value is given to the animals that remain now. In our story, we follow a police officer. His name is Rick Deckard. And the story is very like detective noir. It's like 1940s kind of feeling detective story, but set in the future. And Rick is this very relatable character. He resents his work. He's kind of worn down by the grind of the gritty world he lives in. His personal life really sucks. In the book, he owns an electric sheep, and he really wants a real one. This is very much a futuristic world, right? The world is awesome, but it also sucks. And we know we're far in the future because it's set in 2019. There are flying cars, there are massive skyscrapers, but there's also this corporate takeover, and everything has synth music. The world's AI has got so advanced that we now have androids that are called replicants in the language of the film. They're very realistic, they're very similar to humans, but they are absolutely not equals. They are treated as unpaid servants. They're essentially mechanical slaves. And the backdrop to our story is that a team of 6 replicants on a mining planet has risen up and overthrown the humans and has returned to Earth. And now the police want to find the replicants and they want to kill them, or in the words of the film, they want to retire them. And that is Rick's job. This is our hero. This is Rick, played by Han Solo. He is our cyberpunk future cop. He's out there hunting for the replicants. But the replicants are very hard to identify. For some reason, even with all this technology, they don't have like passports or fingerprints or ID chips or something. Instead, he has to use this special test. It's called the Voight-Kampff test. And the way the test works is he will describe a situation and he will measure their response. So he asks questions like, you're sitting watching TV and suddenly you discover a wasp crawling on your wrist. And then he tries to measure, anyone know? It's empathy. Empathy is the difference. Empathy is the difference between the humans and AI in the world of the film. The humans have it, the AI don't. It's also the thing that I think we cannot simulate, that we cannot delegate to AIs, and it is the part of you that I believe cannot be automated and will never be able to be automated. And I will justify those claims in a second. In the story, it's written like this: the replicants have no ability to feel empathic joy for another life form's success or grief at its defeat. And that's how the test works. The test involves measuring the subject's pupils, their breathing, their pulse, and testing for an empathetic response when the scenario is laid out. They ask these questions to evoke empathy, and they see if empathy is measurable in the subject. The cyberpunk detective noir story, that's the genre of the film, but empathy is really the theme. It's the test for the humans versus the AIs. But it's also present in the contrast between how the humans treat the few animals that exist with like such care and attention versus how brutally the replicants are treated. In fact, in the book, after Rick has successfully, that's a spoiler, after Rick has successfully found all of the replicants and retired them, he uses his fee to buy a real-life goat, and it ends up healing his relationship with his wife. I am aware that is in a story. You don't need to at me. But could LLMs, could generative AI be empathetic? My brief answer is no. They can be sympathetic. They can express the things that we like to hear when things are bad, because sympathy can be about actions and about words. But empathy is specifically about feeling an emotion. And while we can simulate the results of feelings, like we can make robots that cry, it's not the same thing. And this is important because we care about people being invested in us. That's not just about their words and their actions. There are parts of our job that are technical and organizational and strategic that are ultimately cognitive processes. But there are also parts of our work that are social, that are about other people, that are relationship-based. And AI cannot do those things. Those are based on fuzzy concepts like trust and inspiration, not on code bases and tests passing. And those things are built on empathy. So when parts of our work get automated and reduced in the amount of time that they take and the amount of effort that we have to put into them, what remains is going to be more of our time. It's going to be where our greatest source of leverage is and our greatest source of impact. I am aware this isn't particularly new as an idea. The importance of empathy is pretty well understood. If you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, empathy, like love and belonging, those social needs, feature pretty highly, only above our needs for things like food and water and safety and shelter. If you're familiar with Paloma Medina's biceps models of the different things that people value, belonging, the social need to be seen and to have community and connection, is the first one of the 6 that she identifies. If you, like me, like Patrick Lencioni's book, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, that book lays out an argument for why interpersonal trust is the most fundamental part of creating a successful team and the most fundamental failure mode for when teamwork goes wrong. And empathy is needed for all of these. I'm also not the only person saying this. I know that. This is Jacinda Ardern, my personal hero. Jacinda Ardern was the Prime Minister of New Zealand for, I think, about 6 years, the second ever world leader to give birth while in office. She oversaw New Zealand's response to the COVID pandemic, which was one of the most successful in the world. She also led her country through its worst terrorism incident in its history. And she did so with a great deal of humility and by building trust. I find her very impressive, and she has spoken a lot about the need for empathy in world leaders and people with like a high degree of scope and leverage in their leadership. Empathy is not alone in this, though. Empathy is one of a group of qualities that we care about. We care about things like trust and attention and time and inclusion and respect. I think the reason we care about these is not just because of the effects of them. We care about these things before they even impact us. We care about these things and we value them because they cost someone else something. They cost someone else time, or they cost someone else effort or humility. What that means is there aren't shortcuts to these. If you take a shortcut, if you fake it, it loses its value because the thing we value, like we like the outcomes of that, but we really care that you put in the effort to try. My hypothesis is that AI means we value these kinds of things more because the more we automate, the more we will care about the things that can't be automated, the more we will care about where you choose to invest your time and your energy. I keep talking about empathy. I feel like I should define it clearly, and different definitions of empathy do exist. I looked through academic literature to try and find a review paper where someone had centralized a sort of single definition of empathy. I'm going to warn you, it's a lot. Empathy is an emotional response that is automatically elicited that is similar to the stimulus emotion while recognizing that the emotion is not your own. My sort of layperson summary of that is it means feeling someone else's emotions while still knowing that they are not yours. And a machine that cannot feel can't be empathetic. I also think while empathy is kind, empathy is a good thing to practice and to do for the sake of other people, it's also worth saying that empathy changes outcomes too. Doctors who are empathetic, who build more trust with their patients, who care more, have better outcomes. Their patients get better faster. Empathetic people have happier relationships that last longer, where conflict is more productive. It correlates with being a more supportive friend too. And at work, more empathetic, more psychologically safe work environments see 50% more productivity. They see twice as many people who can be innovative at work. They see more than double the number of people that are engaged at work, and they are roughly 3 times as inclusive as well. My point here is that empathy gets results. Do it because it's kind, but also know that it is high leverage to invest in. And there are a load of situations that need empathy. We care about empathy because it builds social bonds. It helps you to be a better manager. It helps you build more trust with the people that you work with most closely. But it also helps you to understand the actions of others and understand their positions. Like, what are your competition going to do next? Where is that supplier going with their roadmap and why? Why does my CEO care about that one particular thing so much and less about these other things? Why are those 2 people on my team arguing? Why do they have such different opinions on what we should do next? All of those situations are helped by having more empathy. I hope I've convinced you that you can't use AI for everything. The question you might be asking is, where is the line? Like, how do I draw that line between what I can use AI for and what I absolutely shouldn't? I think there is a simple test for this, and it is a test built on the idea of empathy, which is asking yourself, would you be comfortable telling them that you used AI for it? Here are some genuine examples that I have read people using AI for. I didn't watch your presentation, I generated a summary instead. Or I'm just going to send my digital twin to our one-to-one because I've got something else on at the same time. I generated your performance review. Or I got distracted during our conversation to make sure my AI assistant isn't waiting for me to answer. These are real examples, and this is intended to be an empathy-based test, because if you are thinking, well, actually, I wouldn't be comfortable admitting to the other person involved that I used AI, that is because you are kind of feeling their emotion that they would experience when they heard that. You are feeling that lack of being valued, that lack of you wanting to spend effort on them. These are areas where AI may well be correct. It may well do the job that you ask it to do. It may well not hallucinate and get to the right end result, and it will still be harmful to use it. I think now is a great time to be strengthening our empathy. Typical work has become more remote for many of us. More work involves AI, which is generally more isolating because it involves less interacting with other people. And I think the human side of work is going to matter more as the cognitive side gets progressively more automated. So I think this is a good time to strengthen your empathy. But that will look different for different people. This is a quick aside, but not everyone experiences or shows empathy in the same way. Statistically, 20 to 30% of the room and the teams that you lead will have autism, for example. And there is a stereotype that people with autism can't do empathy. This is not the case, and I think that is worth addressing in this talk. But very often, people with autism will respond differently to people without autism. They might appear calm. They might offer some very practical advice. They might show their empathy through their actions, or they might take more time to process what they've heard before they give an empathetic response. It's still empathy, but in a way that might not be recognized by other people, which means it might not have the same impact. So if you work with people who have autism or you have autism yourself, you might want to start that discussion about different ways of showing empathy, just so you understand each other better and are more able to have that connection. I want to end with some practical tips, some specific things you can do to cultivate and grow this kind of empathy muscle. I think we're all responding to external changes driven by AI and automation. I suspect more changes are coming. Here are some small concrete things that I am trying to do and that I want to share that I think will help us all prepare. Tip number one for increasing your empathy is read fiction, which might sound strange, but fiction with rich emotional lives, or indeed listening to audiobooks, gives you that view inside someone's head. And sure, it's a fictional character, but people in real life often don't talk about their feelings. They're bringing them to your interactions, but they don't talk about their backstory and how they got to that point and why they feel the certain way that they do. Fiction gives you that. Fiction can tell you the story of someone's life up to a point and then show you the events that happen. And seeing that, reading that, and understanding that is a very useful way for growing empathy. Idea number two. Cultivate curiosity without advocacy. I think this has always been a good idea, frankly, and it's something that, as engineers, we are not always brilliant at. When we disagree, people are very often tempted to try and convince the other person or to explain why their idea is such a good one. The next time you disagree with someone, see it as a learning opportunity. Try to understand why they disagree with you. Don't push your own ideas unless asked. Don't try and correct them. Instead, ask, what have they seen that led them to this idea? How have their thoughts changed over time? What other things did they consider along the way? I should say this is true up to a point. Clearly, this is not true for very extreme positions. If you're talking to someone who is racist or homophobic or transphobic or otherwise bigoted, I'm not saying they deserve your interest or your attention. In many other cases, though, I think it is very helpful to understand other people's positions and how they got there, because it helps you understand them and grows your empathy. Idea number three for you, small talk. Go beyond it. Small talk is great for breaking the ice, like, how was your weekend? Did you see the game on Friday? Going beyond small talk means asking questions that have some kind of emotional component to them. I'm not saying we all have to go straight to being the psychotherapist for everyone that we meet, but asking questions like, was that fun? Is that something you're passionate about? How long have you done that hobby? Did you do that by yourself or with friends or family? We're just trying to gently understand other people better and share in their joy or their sadness or whatever it is if they're willing to share. Again, let's not push this on people, but having those conversations that go a little beyond how was your Sunday starts to grow our empathy a little more. Idea number 4, active listening. Active listening means listening attentively to understand and demonstrating that you're listening. There's 2 parts to that. There's listening to understand. We're not listening to wait for the pause where we can say our own idea. We're not listening to work out how we're going to disagree with someone. It's kind of similar to what I was talking about before. Curiosity without advocacy, deeply listening to someone and giving them your attention. But part of it is also thinking hard about what you hear, really processing it, so that when you respond, you might even be doing it involuntarily. If you're nodding or if you're showing facial expressions when people get to a certain part of the story, or if you show processing in your response, like, oh, it's funny that you love Olympic cycling. I did that once and I was terrified I was going to fall off. Active listening forces you to be empathetic. It makes you really focus on what someone is saying, and it helps you experience the things that they talk about. Last idea for you, showing emotion. We are sometimes encouraged to be detached or unemotional at work. I think this is sometimes labeled as part of being professional, as if professionalism is the enemy of empathy. But as we've just seen, empathy actually gets better results at work. So showing emotions helps to deepen relationships, to build trust with the people that we work with, and it creates psychological safety for other people to do the same back. So particularly if you are the more senior person in a discussion or in a relationship, if you have that job title and the clout that comes with it, it is probably on you to lead the way in creating that psychological safety. Again, nothing extreme. I'm talking about, I love shipping projects on time, not like, here, let me tell you about my childhood and why I'm traumatized. Like, that's a valuable discussion to have with the right people, don't get me wrong, but maybe not with everyone. So here's a quick summary. Empathy is very important to me as a leader, as you can probably tell. It's something we've very much tried to bake into what we do at SkillAware. At SkillAware, we do a very human-focused approach to learning for software engineering teams. Learning is actually something that is fundamentally human and social, and we know it's improved by empathy. Social learning is more memorable. There's also a model for learning. It's called the affective context model that says that we remember things better when they trigger emotional responses in us. The things we learn are kind of attached to emotions by our brain. When people learn in isolation, when they go and do self-serve video kind of access or book access, typical completion rates you see are around 10%. Social learning tends to see completion rates of 90+%, and that's because it's social. It involves the people that you work with, your team. It involves a human coach. It involves someone who's done the same job and understands your challenges. The human connection pulls people to attend, but it also makes them learn better. Before I finish, I write all the talks I do with my co-founder, Haley, and for the first time in about 20 talks, she has not been able to attend this one because she is on medical leave at the moment. However, she made me promise, and this is true, that I would spend 15 seconds explaining what we do at SkillAware. So I am very sorry to do this. Please indulge me for her sake. We do learning for software engineering teams. We work out what each person can and can't do, and we fit the learning around the person rather than fitting the person into the learning. We accelerate learning by experience with a live expert coach. It's more like pair programming than a lecture, and the result is that people attend, they learn socially and deeply with a measurable impact. If you want to see what I mean, if you want to make Haley's day, or you just want to chat about empathy, please do come see me on the stand. Thank you for your attention. Oh, this is great. Does it matter that AI can't be empathetic if I believe that it is being empathetic? I feel like you've answered your own question. So it's interesting. If you look at placebo responses, right, with medicine, where sometimes people, you give someone a sugar pill that they believe to be the real medicine. it can still have an effect on them. It will be less strong than the real medicine, but it still has a positive benefit. My hunch is that that quickly runs out with AI. At some point, you realize that you are talking to a machine, and the placebo effect of that will drop off. But yes, you can kind of self-persuade into thinking that the machine cares about you. However, if someone tells me, I didn't write your performance review, I didn't evaluate you based on my experience, but I got a very empathetic machine to do it for me, I probably have a strong negative opinion about that, regardless of how empathetic you can convince me the machine is. How to build up empathy? Every time I want to try it, I just go blank, and I'm overwhelmed by my own thoughts and emotions. I hear you. I think, firstly, I'm glad you asked the question. I think it's really important to have that self-recognition that you are feeling that way. I really like fiction as a way to start kind of practicing empathy. Reading fiction, understanding the emotional lives of the characters in it, seeing their journeys and why they're responding to situations in a certain way. And then I would say start small. So take like close friends that you have, or maybe colleagues that you work with and know particularly well, and just have a discussion about things that you really like and try and share in each other's joy about that. Say, that sounds super fun. It doesn't have to be a kind of straight in at the deep end, tell me everything that's going wrong with you. That can hold off until you're feeling a bit more confident. How can you measure for or detect empathy in a job interview or recruitment process? That's an interesting question. I'm not convinced that we should measure for it or try and detect it. I think, generally speaking, where we want empathy, we want it in our managers and leaders, and that will likely be visible in the kinds of work that they've done and in the situations they are in. I think of empathy as a thing that we should grow in ourselves, but not necessarily try and force on other people. It's a superpower, but we don't need everyone else to have it. Research indicates that feelings are derivatives of intelligence. As a science fiction reader, why do you think AI cannot experience feelings? I don't know that I agree that feelings are derivatives of intelligence. If I go back to that definition of empathy, it had a cognitive component, but it also had a feeling component separate to the kind of thought side. Why do I think AI cannot experience feelings? At least in humans, the most sentient animals that we're aware of, feelings are strongly related to things like hormones and they're like chemicals rushing around your brain, essentially. And we don't yet have AI systems that do a good job of simulating those. If you've seen evidence that disputes that, I would love to hear it, and I will be down at the stand. Thank you all for your time.